I've been asked a few times this week my thoughts on the new Linux Code of Conduct, and in this video I'm going to tell you about them. But I also want to try to address some of the misconceptions I feel people have about the Linux Code of Conduct, though it's kind of pointless because it seems like people have already made up their mind about it and they're not going to change it. However, I just want to get my stance and my opinion on the matter out into the open so when people ask, I can point to this video. So the footage in the background I'm going to be showing is of course Skyrim with some mods played on Linux with Steam Play. So right out of the gate, let me tell you what I think of the Code of Conduct. It is fine. I think that the spirit of the Code of Conduct is good because it tries to clearly define how kernel maintainers should and should not present and handle themselves in public arenas, like when speaking and in mailing lists and things like that. I think two really good examples of where the Code of Conduct would have been useful is when Linus Torvalds looked at the camera and told Nvidia to go fuck themselves, and when Theodore So made really bizarre rape comments in the linux.conf.au mailing list, which seems like a grossly inappropriate place to even bring up topics like that. Now, I personally don't interpret the Code of Conduct trying to manage what kernel maintainers do in their private lives, but for example, Theodore So went on this weird tangent about rape statistics and stuff like that, and I mean, if that's his personal beliefs, that's fine, I guess, but why on earth would you try to discuss it in a mailing list about Linux? That is completely inappropriate. I look at it like this. I work at a company as a software developer, and let's say that there is a big long email chain that has a bunch of employees from my company, like executives, and we've got some clients on that email chain, and I just decided to start talking about my feelings on rape, or how I feel like one of our clients is just a big asshole and they suck because their drivers suck or something like that. I would be fired so fast it would be unbelievable. But because the Linux kernel is an open source community and there's no like leadership really or anything, like who is going to tell Theodore So, hey man, what you said was really inappropriate and you can't maintain it anymore? Nobody would have done that, and still I don't think anybody can do that. But the Code of Conduct is trying to set out some rules and say, hey man, talking about rape probably isn't a good idea in a mailing list, so don't do that. Something else that it seems like a lot of people are talking about is how the Linux kernel is being taken over by social justice warriors, which is a really stupid-ass term. And I can agree that the origin of the Code of Conduct is a little dodgy. The author has a questionable background, but she's not a kernel maintainer, and as best of my knowledge, she doesn't even commit or do anything regarding the Linux kernel at all. She just authored the damn thing. And it's not like she forced the Code of Conduct in. It was signed off by like 4 lead developers. So quite honestly, if you all have a problem with the Code of Conduct, don't take it out on her. Take it out on the guys that approved it. Now, since the Code of Conduct was announced, there's been a few tweet wars between people trying to call out bad behavior from developers as if they need to be held accountable for their actions. Which, I mean, if they do, that's fine, but it's not up to people in the community and people on Twitter, of all places, to call people out and expect the group responsible for enforcing Code of Conduct violations to do something about it. Quite honestly, I think this behavior is really petty, and if somebody has an issue with something a maintainer has done in the past, they should raise it to the proper group, not try to flame them on Twitter. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect the new Code of Conduct to sort of hold everybody at a higher professional standard, but for people to go to Twitter and try to call developers out for bad behavior is just stupid. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is the whole kill switch bullshit. Linux developers are not going to pull the plug on their contributions and take everything they've done out of the Linux kernel. It's not going to happen. The vast majority of the commits to the Linux kernel are done on behalf of companies such as Red Hat, Samsung, Intel, and so on. If individual developers that have contributed, I don't know, bug fixes or something want to revoke their changes, that's fine. An employee from one of those companies will come in and put the fix back in. That's how open source works. If you go to Google and type in Linux COC controversy, you just see tons of links from sites and forums reposting the same article claiming how Linux developers are threatening to pull a kill switch. And this kind of shit is just embarrassing. That's not going to happen. It makes the entire Linux community look juvenile and immature, and I wish people would stop reposting this stupid-ass article. So that about sums up my thoughts and opinions on the whole Code of Conduct thing. Quite honestly, my feelings aren't terribly strong. Like I said, I agree that the origin of the code of conduct is dodgy, but ultimately it's not the author's fault, it's the people that approved it. And I think that the spirit of the code of conduct is good. I only used 2 examples, but Linux has an interesting history of kernel maintainers being odd, and that kind of behavior reflects badly on the entire community. Quite honestly, it's embarrassing. Like I said, if people want to have interesting, fringy beliefs about controversial topics, that's great for them. They can do that on their private time, but don't bring it into the public lens by bringing it up in a technical mailing list. Like, that's just weird. And likewise, there's absolutely no reason to rattle off obscenities at vendors because they offer poor support. Like, that's not the kind of community we want to have. And if you disagree, and that is the kind of community you want to have, you are absolutely free to fork the hell out of the Linux kernel. Or even better, you can go check out the GNU herd kernel. So if you don't want to have anything to do with this Linux kernel social justice warrior bullshit, you can hop over to the GNU side of the house and you can go bananas over there. But in my opinion, the code of conduct is probably here to stay. I think that there might be some clarifying comments about where the actual code of conduct came from and all that other stuff, but I don't think it's going anywhere. So yeah, that's my opinion on the whole thing. I hope that you guys appreciated the video, and if you did, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and all that stuff. I've seen comment sections on other videos and forums and on Reddit discussing this, and if things get too out of control in the comments, I'm just going to shut them off. I'm not interested in trying to like feed trolls or fan the flames or anything. People ask me my thoughts, and I want to give them. But I don't want to start more controversy and drama. So that's all I have. Thank you for watching.